Okay, irregular weak verbs plus haben in the simple past, the narrative past. This is an unregelmäßiger schwacher Verb. This is an irregular weak verb. And what I want you to do is take a look at this list and you'll see that the verbs have some things in common. They, for the most part, rhyme. Okay? These verbs are called irregular weak verbs, and yes, they do exist. They are a combination of both a spelling change in the stem, but a TE ending, which is considered a regular verb ending. So again, let's take a look at this list. Brennen, kennen, nennen, brennen, denken, bringen, wissen, and haben. Haben is kind of its own little thing. It does not a vowel change, but a consonant change, and we'll take a look at this as together. If you could turn to 255, Seite 255, you will see all of these verbs listed in the narrative past and them used in a sentence. So brennen becomes brannte. Kennen becomes kannte. I knew that. Okay, I knew him or I knew her. Nennen becomes nannte, to name. Brennen is rannte, which means ran. Denken, dachte, which is I thought. Bringen, brachte, I brought. Wissen, wusste, I knew. And haben, you know haben is hatte. And so here you see the B changed to two T's, whereas the rest of them it was the vowel that changed. So that's a little bit unique, but shouldn't throw you off because we've seen that before. So there are some examples, like I said, on 255, but what I really want to focus on is just take a minute and differentiate for you what does kennen mean, which is to know, and wissen mean, which also means to know. What is the difference between these two? Let's see if you can figure it out on your own. I can't get the pen to come back. Okay, anyways. Ich kenne deinen Bruder. I know your brother. Ich kannte den Lehrer. I knew the teacher. Wissen. Ich weiß, dass morgen schneit es. I don't know. Ich wusste das nicht mehr. I didn't know that anymore. So, kennen means to know a person, and wissen means to know a fact. Kennen also means to be familiar with, like the example in the book. Ich kannte fast alle Leute auf der Party. I pretty much knew everyone at the party. So that is the difference between kennen and wissen. Continuing on with the concept of verbs that are irregular, let's go ahead and look at exercise 5 on Seite 256. We are now talking about irregular verbs in the narrative past. So just to give you a little refresher, we've got spielen, which is a regular verb, so we use the stem of the verb plus te. We have modal verbs, no umlauts on the modal verbs. For example, I liked, ich mochte, plus your infinitive at the end. Okay? Then we have these rare ones that I just talked about, which are irregular weak. Haben is an example. There's a spelling change. Hatte, another example. Bringen became brachte, and that has a whole bunch of spelling changes in there. The spelling vowel change, stem change, but it does also have the te ending, which would normally be a regular verb. So let's talk about strong verbs in the simple past. I know we mentioned this last year, or at least I think we did, and there would be times when we would be conjugating verbs and we'd be using the past tense, and people would say to me, but it doesn't change in the present tense. How do I know if it's irregular? Well, this is usually where the change happens, and even if you can't find it in the conversational past. So here's an example of what we're going to do. Sprechen is given to you, and you'll see that there's a stem vowel change from E to A. So ich spreche, I am speaking. Ich habe gesprochen, I have spoken. Ich sprach, I spoke. Schreiben, I am writing. Ich habe geschrieben. I have written. Ich schrieb. I wrote. Fahren. Ich fahre. I am driving. Ich bin gefahren. I have driven. Ich fuhr. I drove. Okay. Let's see. The TE, as you may be noticing, is not added to the strong verbs in the simple past. Unfortunately, the only way to learn these is really by memorizing them and using them. Again, you can go to the back of your textbook, Appendix 25, for a list of these verbs. The nice thing about them is that so many of them look like what they do in the present or conversational past forms that you can often recognize what the verb was supposed to be in the first place. One other thing I'd like to make a note of about these, let's use gehen for example. Ich ging, I went, okay? Du gingst, you went. And then what's going to happen with the RZS? Don't forget, ich and RZS are the same. They are the same. We have gone, we went. Wir gingen. You all have gone. Ihr gingt. Sounds funny. And they have gone. Sie gingen. Remember, the ich, the RZS are the same, the wir and the ZZ are the same, and those are the ones that you're going to talk about. In the narrative past, you're primarily using first and third person. There are, however, of course, some exceptions to that. And one of the verbs that we would use often would be sein. And sein, you already know and have already learned, is waren. We would use this often when we're speaking. So I was, ich war, you were, du warst. Where were you, for example? Wo warst du? I could say wo bist du gewesen, but it's longer and not very common. RZS, war, remember the ich and the RZS for the narrative past are all the same. Wir waren, ihr wart, and Sie waren. Okay. The last one that I'm going to talk about on this session would be the verb werden, which means to become. And again, if you refer to your textbook, Seite 256, the verb werden means will become. You use that with an infinitive in the end. So for example, in present tense, ich werde die Hausaufgaben machen. I would have done the homework would look like this. Ich würde die Hausaufgaben machen. So ich würde, du würdest, yes wurde, wir würden, ihr würdet, sie würden. Again, no umlauts, and the ich and the yes are the same. Okay, you are going to Seite 257, Übung C. Setzen Sie die Verben ins Präteritum. So they give you in parentheses the verbs that they'd like you to use. They've given you the infinitive, and your job is to make them narrative past, simple past. Some of them are regular, others are irregular. That's exercise C. Exercise D. Erzählen Sie von den Begegnungen, benutzen Sie das Präteritum. Your job is very simple. Change the present tense verb to the narrative past. You do not need to rewrite the sentence. You can simply just put in what verb would replace it. For example, heute fahre ich mit dem Rad durch den Park becomes heute fahre ich mit dem Rad durch den Park. And Übung A. Ein schöner Abend. Okay, schreiben und sprechen Sie im Präteritum. These sentences in English need to be written out, changed into the narrative past. I would love for you to work in groups, small or partners, and instead of writing it down, see if you can verbally work it out until you can come up with a sentence collaboratively that makes sense, and then write it down and maybe compare your answers with to other people amongst the group. Okay, und dann tschüss und vielen Dank.